Welcome back to the Love, Truth, and Power podcast. In today's Men Are Talking series, men search for their fathers. This will be a three-part, 1 hour journey. I invite you to this courageous and transformative journey where men realize the power of a father and their need for healing.
Welcome to the Love, Truth, and Power podcast, the next episode. Men Are Talking. This segment is in reference to searching for my father. That's going to be the topic that we're going to address this evening. For the panel, I'd like you to introduce yourselves, and if you would consider your own father to be present and engaged, just present, or not present. And we'll start with Trayvon.
Man, I'm Trey, man. Trayvon, man. Everybody call me Trey. And my pops was definitely present and engaging for sure. For sure, man. He taught me a lot. He gave me a lot of game that made me successful in life. Yeah, for sure.
I'm Mike. My dad for sure was present and engaged. Always has been and always will be.
My name is Isaac. My biological father's passed, but my dad, my stepdad, my dad he's been present since I was, a little boy. So I definitely have a father figure that's present in my life right now.
All right, my name is Daryl. I would say that my dad was present. And as time passed, the relevancy, came. But initially, I would just say present, and I simply say present because I knew who he was.
I like that.
Right. Very response.
I'm Daryl, and wow, I'm going to say that he was not present, but present. And we'll elaborate on that later. Based on your answer, how did that shape the view of your world as a young child? Start with you, Mr. Page.
Well, it really didn't impact me as a kid because I had a backbone and I had a strong black woman to carry that load and to fill that void that was missing. So growing up, there was no impact.
Isaac, talk to me.
For me, my childhood, wow, that's a two-part answer for me, I guess, because prior to my mom getting married, I mean, my only father figures was uncles, but we got a close-knit family, so everybody corralled around me. Me looking back, everybody corralled around Isaac, and so I didn't really know that I was missing something until my dad came in my life. When my mom married my father now, and he came, that's when I realized that up until I was 9, that those years that I was missing. You know what I'm saying?
That's when you realized you were able to realize.
Yeah, when I was able to realize, like, just looking back, I'm saying, man, like, at that point, you know what I'm saying, the things that he did, you know what I'm saying? For me, checking my homework.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Making sure I was getting, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
So.
And Trayvon, speak on.
Oh man, it was beautiful, man. Man, my mom and my pop, before he passed, my mom and my pop was together for like 20 plus years. So man, it was great, man. And another thing for my pops, man, just to see, like, my sisters my mom had another kid by somebody else, and my pops came in. And he took care of my sister. So for me being young when I was like 6, 7, just knowing, you know what I'm saying, you know, as a kid, and seeing him, he treated her no different. You know, he treated her no different. So that just painted a picture of the type of man he was. You know, for me coming up as a young age, you know, like just to have some type of character and be, you know, honest and be a good person to the world, you know what I'm saying? Because he didn't have to be that way. He didn't, you know?
Correct, and that's not part of the narrative that they show on us,
Right,
right?
that's right.
The Black
That's right.
father.
That was a key word you used there, character.
Right, right.
To see, a lot of times that's what we are missing. You know, if you don't have someone to instill and build some sort of character for you, that's when we had a tendency to be lost, I'll say.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a key cornerstone.
Right.
Mike, I want you to talk to it and give me a very small example.
For my dad, I would say he got to really be hands-on with molding me into the man that I'm supposed to be and the man that I am today. So early on, just being able to not only just tell me what to do, but showing me what to do on the everyday basis. So he used to always tell me growing up, like, take what you see from your friends, what their mistakes are, what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right, and apply it to your life. That's free education. That's something that you don't have to go through. That's something that you don't have to learn. It's free education for you, so you can move on with that in life. You don't have to make that mistake. You don't have to go through that either, and therefore you're ahead of everybody else when you apply that to your life.
Awesome. Let me speak briefly, and then we're gonna get back into it. For me, wow. You know, your mother being your first love in your life. And that's why I said he was present, but he wasn't. When I realized who he was at a young age, listening to my siblings, it was still irrelevant to me, you know, because my mother was all I knew, right? I knew who he was. Yeah, I knew who he was, and he was around, but he wasn't in my day-to-day.
Yeah.
You know, we wasn't going fishing.
Right.
You know, we weren't going to the park. He wasn't coming to practice. You know, at around 10, I knew who he was, but again, it wasn't a day-to-day, and at a young age, of course, my mother was all I knew, and that's all I needed at that time. And we're gonna come back to it later, but at that time, that's all I needed. How old was your father when he became a father for the first time? At what age were you when you became a father, if you're a father? And do you think age helped or hindered the way that your father and you parent? So did your age, whatever age they was, did it hinder or help the way you parent your child? And Mike, I'm gonna start out with you.
Well, my dad had me when he was 29. I would say that he had me at a good age, career-wise and just mentally. There was a lot of things that he still hadn't dealt with him not having a dad, but I think him just knowing that he was having a boy, he knew already off rip what he wasn't going to do and what wasn't an option for him, and what wasn't an option for him was taking care of his kids. And his impact alone, just not taking that same route as his dad and leaving and having that option, like, I'm gonna follow in his footsteps, really put an impact on me for my kids. Like, no matter what's going on, no matter what the marriage is like, no matter what trauma you're going through in your life, like, you have a responsibility as a man to always take care of your kids.
Wow, that's answer. Speak to it.
My dad, came into a ready-made family, and so he came in doing, I mean, just to me, everything that a dad was supposed to do for a child. You know what I'm saying? And so they was in their 20s. For me, I had my first child at 19, and I think the question was, did age have a hindrance on me?
Correct.
Absolutely, man. I knew nothing. I mean, you do what you see, and so that's what I did. I mean, if it wasn't for him modeling like what a dad is supposed to do, I would have been more lost raising my newborn child as a 18, 19-year-old, so I would say he did an awesome job just modeling what a dad is supposed to be with their kids.
Isaac, I'm gonna speak to you for a minute because you just have a different
I got it, yeah.
scenario, and I would hope that you speak to both at some point, and you know what I'm talking about. But that's for you. You already know. But that's
Yeah,
for
I
you.
mean,
That's for you. That's for
I'm
you.
just waiting
You
on the
already
question.
know. Yeah.
I ain't
It's
had the
coming.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want it now? I mean,
Oh no. We're gonna get back to it.
yeah,
That's
my
fine.
yeah, man. Yeah, my scenario is different, man.
Correct.
Yeah, a whole lot.
And I'm gonna try to chorus the conversation.
Yeah. I got
So we'll
you.
get
I
to
got
it.
you.
Trayvon, talk to me.
I think my pops was probably like, cause I won't say my sister for sure. So he probably was like in his late 20s. He had me when he was in his 30s. And for me, man, I just had my daughter. She's 2 years old. So I had her 2 years ago. I became a parent when I was 25. So she, having her, man, like, and having a blueprint to follow. Like, man, like, I know y'all don't know my pops, but he know, man, like, his name meant something, you know what I'm saying?
And that's important, though. I love the way you said blueprint.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Yeah.
He gave me the blueprint to be and understand what a man is. Like, even though when I was 19, I lost him, you know what I'm saying? But the overall understanding of, like, okay, you gotta do this. Like, you want your kids to do this. Like, I understand it already. If I didn't have a father figure, I would know none of that, you know what I'm saying? So, I would say it definitely isn't a hindrance, but at the same time, I gotta figure some stuff out for myself too, you know, being a man now, you know. So.
Yeah, it's not the same path.
Right.
Hey, talk to me.
Yeah, I wonder why you say me last for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he say he.
I didn't see you, sir.
Yeah, okay. Well, my scenario is a lot different. You know, as Isaac say, I can use Isaac. As Max say, you know, as Max say, you know, his situation is different. You know, mine is unique in his own way. And I say that because ahead of me, y'all young guys might not know what this is, but it's like I'm the knee baby. So there are 7 ahead of me. So by the time I came along, my dad at that point and my mom was in their, you know, late 30s.
Right.
So you would think the understanding and the words you use, laying the blueprint, would be there, but because of the fact that, as I stated in my opening, he was known, but not necessarily there. So I had to rely on what my mom provided and my older siblings. When I was born, shortly after that, that's when my dad decided he wanted to move, go away. So my older siblings, yeah, that they may have had that, but I didn't. And as I got older, I formed my own wall when it came to him. And it took me a minute to break through that wall. So I can't say that regardless of what his age was when he had me, did that have an impact on how I raised mine at my age? Because I had my first one, I was 21, but I learned, and y'all gonna get tired of me saying this tonight, I got mine from my mama. And that's just where it's at for me. She the one taught me how to raise your kids. You know what I'm saying? This is what you're supposed to be as a man. You should be doing this and that. And I understand when people say, you know, a woman can't raise a man. Well, I have to beg to differ a little bit there. And I may be going off script a little bit, but you shouldn't have brought me in on that one. A woman may not be able to teach you everything you need to know.
But is that the stereotype, Dave, that everybody says? I mean, that's not something that I believe myself.
I don't believe it, but
You know,
but
but
that's everybody has heard that a
Correct.
woman
Yeah, and I'm wondering why it's said.
Well, I don't think I believe that a woman can't teach a man how to be a man. They can show you, give you their interpretation of it. You understand what I'm saying?
Correct.
You
Correct.
still need a man to show you how to be a man.
Correct.
And it don't have to be a father figure. I'm saying father, a biological father. It could be a father figure, somebody that you done that pulled you up under their wing. But I get what he's saying though, and that's it. Yeah, that's that. It's a narrative out there.
Correct.
Yeah, and it is one that I struggle with.
Yeah.
Because when I have a woman that raised 8 kids on her own,
That's strong.
and out of that, 5 of them are boys, are men, and out of that 5, none have ever been in the penitentiary or locked up.
Beautiful.
You know, so it. I'm not saying she showed me everything about being certain things I had to learn on my own. Certain things I learned by association,
And that's what we talking about.
But
that's what we talking about.
But my foundation, I have to take it back to her. And as does my age, at the age in which I had my first child, had an impact on that raising her, or how I don't think it mattered if I had her at 20, 16, or 40 or 30. It don't matter. It's still going to be a learning curve.
So we got a newcomer to the panel. I'm gonna have you introduce yourself and would you consider your own father to be present and engaged, just present, or absent father?
How y'all doing? I'm Nate Williams, and to answer the question, I would say it's both present and engaged, and or all 3: present, engaged, and absent. 'Cause at the time in my life, it was absent for a while when him and my mom separated, and then it became present, and now it's even more engaged in the last 6 years since I found out my heart diagnosis, he's been really engaged, even more.
Wow.
So yeah.
Okay. How old was your father? Talking to you, Nate.
Mm-hmm.
When he became a father for the first time, what age was he? And for you, if you're a father, and do you think age helped or hindered the way he and you parent?
Age-wise, I'm not sure exactly how old he was. I know I'm 24. My brother is 27, and my sister's getting ready to turn 28. So I'm not exactly sure how old he was at the time, but I believe age. He was in the military. Age does not deter, in my opinion, the base of how you raise your child. It's the maturity and how you were raised as well. It reflects off of how you were raised, and then the maturity as well. And no, I do not have kids, but I treat my nieces and nephews as my own. If I did have kids, I would treat them the same way because, like I said, the way I was raised by my mom and my dad, it goes in all the other figures in my life. I go stepping stones from there.
Okay. For me, my father was. We were almost the same age. My father was 28. I was 29. No, let me back up. My father was 28 when he had me. I'm the sixth child of my parents. So let me back up. So my father was 21. And my mother, she's gonna when she sees this, she's gonna say, "Boy, you're crazy." But yeah, I want to say he was 21. I was 28. For me, I was already seasoned. So I thought until my child came. Different ball game.
Yeah, that's what I said.
So for me, yeah, I thought I was 28. I had joined the Army late, not really late, went to college first, came back, joined the Army, so I thought I was seasoned. But you're never really seasoned or prepared for a child to come, but what an extreme blessing it is to have a child and become a father and a husband. Man, did it hinder? When I look at him, for me, I'm gonna say no because I was seasoned. But when I look at him at 21, and then I try to put myself at 21, man, please. For him, yeah, being in the South, born in the 30s, absolutely.
Yeah, but can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
So, but when you say you being 21, you feel like that would have been a hindrance. Is it because of where you were at that time in life?
Absolutely.
But remember what you said, and I think not necessarily what you said, but what Nate said and what I said. I think Mac may have even said it. Even at 21 or 31, there is still going to be that learning curve there. You're not going to be ready.
Correct. Correct.
So
you're never ready. But the one thing that I didn't address or didn't look at is not just not being ready, not just being immature, but the other challenges that came with that. Right. My father didn't go to school. I think he went to the 4th grade. So I'm a little older than y'all, 4th or 5th grade. But they worked the fields back in the day, so it's a different type of responsibility. Right. Even though he was 21, he was already grown at a young age, because that's the way it was in the South at the time.
Yeah.
You know, my mother, she elaborated on it all the time. Didn't get a chance to have that conversation with him, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I think age absolutely plays a part. Like you were elaborating on, Paige. I don't care how old you are. When you have a child, it's irrelevant how old you are. You never had a child before. Your
Because at
first
the end of the
child.
day, it's a life-changing event.
Correct.
Something new, it's something new for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Instantly.
So, let's get into it a little bit. Many children of color today are being raised by single parents, mostly single mothers. And most of society would put that stigma on black fathers. As its history, the lack of opportunity, and the generations of oppressive practices did not intentionally split up black families. Some of our fathers, with these systemic processes in place, turn to drugs. This conversation is going to go one-sided. Turn to drugs, turn to alcohol, even turn to other women that are didn't have as much responsibility, didn't have too much expectations at that time, and some of them just didn't get the opportunity to have access to mental health at that time to fix families of color in crisis. So my question is, are there any support systems like family, faith, social, or others that you think could have been helpful to our fathers who were absent or just present but not engaged? Start with you, Ice.
Absolutely. I'm part of an organization. I'm one of 6 directors in an organization called My Brother's Keeper of Greater Richmond. We teach fatherhood development courses to men. We use a curriculum called 24/7 Dad. And so we get men that falls in every category he just talked about. We take them through a 12-week course, family, communication, walking the mother's shoes, just this whole course they go through, 12-week program. And to answer your question, if that program was present back in them days,
Correct.
Yeah, and so I would say, yeah. There are programs like that, that men can go to, and get that kind of help. I would say this. I had a kid in my class that was 19 years old. 3 kids, but he wanted to know how to be a dad. He didn't have a father figure growing up, drugs, everything that he just talked about. And watching that kid just go through the class and listen to us talk and teach and listen to other men that's in the class, and they, you know what I'm saying? When he graduated the class, he had a better outlook on what it was to be a man and a dad, so.
Well,
I want to see what you see back then and what you see now. So
right now, if I have to reflect back to my daddy, I would have to say they did what they knew.
Yep.
And as far as a support system, the only thing you had was, and like I say, I'm a grown man, so I was born in the 60s. So the only thing they had at that time, and I'm just speaking at the age and in the time frame when I was born, I'm not going to even go back to when my other siblings was born that are older than me. All you had was your teaching, your family, your church. That was it. The support groups and what Matt mentioned, that wasn't there then. So my daddy could only learn from
But his
the
daddy-
environment that he was in and what his dad had put on him. That's the only thing that in that time, that's all they had. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's all he had. Now, does that excuse you or for what you did or how you went about life?
Absolutely not.
No, because in that same time frame, there were men out there that were still raising their kids and doing things like that. So, support system help. Were they in place in my era, in my birth era? I don't think they were. I'm born and raised in Alabama. No, it was not. So all you had was the community. That was it. So he made some mistakes, learned from them, but I don't think he adhered to the entire community. You picked and choose where you wanted to follow and where you wanted to go, because like I said, there were those that were raised in families, but you may mention earlier about, as you know, the narrative there about one of the reasons why you talk about women and the other thing. Yeah,
that was an escape mechanism, right? That you're trying to get away from. You're trying to avoid the stress and the pressures of taking care of a family.
Well,
That's crazy.
in that era, I would say it was a fad. And I use fad because you go through times in life where, certain peoples are doing this, certain people are doing this and doing that. In that era, having a certain amount, being a playboy and having one, that was the thing.
That was their thing.
That was their thing. So I would say it was the era. He picked and chose, and we ended up the way we were.
Yeah, and it's interesting when we talk and we know about the history of the past, about families, and there were large families back in the day.
Yes.
Nobody has a large family today. Mm-hmm. So back then, you're looking at 6, 7, 8 kids, and I'm thinking like, okay, maybe it was the pressures of you trying to take care of them, but that was the way of the land back then.
Yeah.
Everybody had large families,
Yeah,
right? So that was the excuse I was trying to give him.
Yeah, it was the norm for y'all.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just wanted to reiterate on that. So let's go back. I want you guys to speak to your peers. So from the question, what advice are you giving to your peers in this struggle today? What would you say to them, the young man today that's out here struggling, right? Absent, struggling,
man, I seen one.
Yeah, because we have a lot of definitions for it. Yeah, absolutely. So give me some advice. Talk to me. Come on, Mike.
The first thing that I would say is to, like Max said, get under somebody who can really help you. Somebody who's elevated at the position that you want to get to. Like, get a mentor or get a guy to really help you through and battle through your issues and all that. And if you're on the spiritual side of it, go find you a pastor. That's what they're there for. The church is designed to help people. So getting connected with people like that and real men who have...
Would your father be one of those people?
For sure.
That you would give him access to?
For sure.
Awesome.
Now
Awesome.
I would. Like, now that my dad finally, he found somebody that he could get up under and that he could be poured into, and he didn't have to necessarily feel like he had all the answers
Got
for.
it.
I would definitely recommend him now.
Trayvon, talk to me.
Kind of to piggyback off what Mike said, definitely like the knowledge is out there, especially for us. Cell phones, even in you play video games. Some dudes be playing video games. There's a lot of stories in there about fatherhood and taking care of your children. So it's things of it's kind of, I ain't gonna say there's no excuse, but it's a lot of avenues for them not to be absent in their child life. You know what I'm saying? For Christ's sakes, we got commercials on, you know, so man, I think they should just honestly just stand back and look at themselves. Stand back and look at themselves and some of their vices, man, and go search for the help. Because it's there. It's there from all different angles. You know, people spend however much hours on their phone. There's definitely stuff about fatherhood on there that can point you in the right direction.
It's the same. My father had the same. He didn't have that necessarily that support system. But now, looking back at it, looking at Trayvon, we have that. We have that, and the stepping stones going from what our fathers didn't have. We learned from them or the other role models that we had in our lives. The mentors, that Mike said, pastor, a friend's father, it doesn't matter. Even it's somebody in your family that you can always say, okay, I want to, go mentor. He can, I can follow behind him. At the end of the day, look at it as, do I want to be, if your father was absent in your life, you have to look at it as, do you want to be like him? I don't want to be absent like he was to my child. So we have the platforms, like Trayvon said, on your phone all day. Google. It's easy to Google the help that you need or that question. Like, whatever you need, the resources are there. It's up to you at the end of the day to want to take that help, to get that help.
Pride.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To say something real quick, man, I just want to, y'all, I know y'all daughters, you know what I'm saying? I didn't, you know what I'm saying, through high school, I, you know what I'm saying, took them in under my own and kind of protected them from the BS, everything that come with going through high school. So I just want to say something to y'all. Even though I didn't know y'all as much as I do now, y'all hell of fathers, man. Y'all done, I'm looking at you because, my dad gone, so just how to raise a girl from here. See, he didn't have to raise a girl.
We girl dad.
You know what I'm saying?
We girl dad.
Oh, he got his girl. Okay, so.
And so from this point on, that now that you're engaged with us, you have access to us.
Right.
All of you.
And that's what we need.
And the thing is, on this subject, it's gonna go along with what the problem with today's young man or today's father. So I don't have to focus on the. We get too much pride, especially in the black home.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In the black community, I say, because that's what we're focusing on.
Right.
We have too much pride to say, I don't know how to do this.
Amen, brother.
How look, man, too much pride to say, man, my daughter just went through X, Y, and Z.
Correct.
Yeah.
Daryl, I don't call him Daryl,
Yeah.
Fry, how did you handle that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what we have to do. And you have to be able to engage men. They are there and willing to give you advice.
Yeah.
But we have too much pride.
And it's advice from experience. It's not just off the top of
Yeah.
my head.
I'm only gonna tell you what I've been through.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying?
That's why I use the analogy of my father era. It was there. You just have to ask the right people.
Yeah,
right. There's a choice. There's always a choice you make now.
Yeah.
Am I asking Mr. McKay, or am I asking Junebug in the street? You know what I'm saying? So it's there's a choice there. So it depends on where you get that. Yeah. So it's there. I agree. Y'all in y'all era, the cell phones and everything else, but our era
It's
coming
different
up,
communication
it was just being able to talk to
And
somebody.
the difference between our era and y'all era is ours is one phone call.
Correct.
One phone, it
Correct.
takes one phone call or a text to
Yeah.
call Mr. McKay.
Yeah.
Literally, I've seen him most of the times over on Fort Lee.
Yeah.
It's a simple
Yeah.
how it doesn't take that much. A lot of people now.
We had to run to the neighbor.
Right.
Yeah.
We had to go down the road. We had to run.
Yeah.
So let me give my take. And wow, man, you know, for me, when I see for my father, I think family had to be the biggest thing, the biggest support system. It was almost 8, 9 of them back in the day, and I can only give my opinion of what I think that it should have been back then. They didn't have all of this. For me personally, it was my brothers in the military that was my support system. Man, I'm gonna leave that alone. I want to go back to my father until that time, because one thing I didn't realize, the stressors, is that, man, I never walked in his shoes, and the other thing was I never asked a question. We never had the conversation about my curiosities and my disappointments, but we're gonna get to that. But yeah, again, that's a hard question. Like you said, different answers. That's 2-part.
It's 2-part. But there's things that's out there, and it's. I would say to you guys, and then you can move on after this to close out this segment. I would say this to the man or the young man that's struggling to be in his family zone. I know we got courts and all of that stuff, but I would say this: don't find the mentor, find the model. That's what I would say to them. We're all looking for mentors. Everybody want to be a mentor. You know what I'm saying? But my dad, he modeled what a father was. So I knew what to do when Rachel or Brianna or Sierra was in certain, when they got in certain instances, I said, man, I remember when my dad did this.
Because it was something that was visible.
He modeled it. He may not did this all the time, and all of y'all fathers did that.
You saw it.
I saw it,
Yeah.
but didn't know I seen it because I didn't ask the question. I didn't recognize it till years later when it was my turn to be a dad.
Wow. Ooh. Okay. So, for those of you who have or had an engaged father, what do you think was instrumental in him helping him in fatherhood role, and what do you think is or was the hardest thing for him as a father?
I think what was most instrumental for my dad was probably from my mom. I think she provided that balance for my dad that he really needed, because my dad he didn't have a median at sometimes, so he would be really hard or he would be really too gentle, when it was like, no, you need to get in there and discipline him, or no, you need to relax, you need to talk this time and not that. She really kind of helped my dad work through his emotions with that, and just softened him up, and not made him or controlled him into being a man, but to let him know that there are different versions and variations of a man, because my mom had her dad and he was instrumental in her life, and my dad never had his dad. So for her to be able to be versatile and just for him to allow her input in how he dealt with me was, I think, the biggest instrumental piece. And
So what was the hardest thing you think was for him?
I think the hardest thing for my dad was relating, because my dad grew up so different than I did. I grew up with both my parents. I'm the only child. I got all the attention, I got all the love, I got whatever I wanted. I didn't miss out on anything. I didn't have any traumatic experiences. My dad, he didn't have a dad. He had a father figure who adopted him, and he passed away a couple years ago. And my dad's brothers weren't, their dads are different than his. So for him, everything was different. he left the house to join the military at 18 or go to college, and he joined the reserves, and then after college went straight to the military. So for him, a lot of things, what he did and the choices that he made was out of survival and out of not wanting to lack the way that he did when he was younger.
When I hear you, that's a great observation of your father, and you paying attention. Wow. Okay.
I wish I was paying attention.
I know. Matt.
I'm gonna answer the first question. His big mama, man, for him, like, I feel like she led the way. I don't know her because they died before I got here, but his mom and big mom, man, the way he used to talk about him.
So his mom and grandma.
Yeah.
It's
Big
a big
mom.
mama.
Country talk, man. We know what that
We
is.
know.
I know what that is.
I want you to know. I know what you're talking about. So I want to put it on film. I wanted you to know.
Yeah,
We
we
know
know
what
what
you're
big
talking
mama
about. Now
is.
you're talking our language, but go ahead.
And I feel like what hurt him, man, he I feel like my pops had a drinking problem. So I feel like losing everybody. He lost on them when he was, and probably my pops had to be like 19, and his brother died also. So like that, I could see that that could eat at him a lot, you know. And then my grandfather only got one son left now, so his other brother died in the midst after losing the other brother. So he been through a lot. So you know, I think that's what hurt him most overall, you know.
Most instrumental part would be my mom and my stepmom. Being with my technically your half brother, but I call him my little brother. When he was born, or when my stepmom was pregnant with him, it changed my dad's whole mindset. He was engaged. He was present and as engaged when I was, him and my mom are separated now. He was engaged, but his feelings even now comes from when he was raised, how he was raised, because of how his stepdad was towards him, and it kind of, he's the only boy out of all his siblings. He's the only boy.
Yep.
He's a mama's boy.
Yep.
So the way he was raised reflected on how he was towards us. And when my little brother, once my little brother was born, it started to change. Things started to change, especially him and my mom separated. He lives down in Texas. We're in Virginia, so 22 hours away. Is
So
a
was
big.
that the hardest thing for him?
The hardest thing for him is not being here and being what I went through. Me suffering a heart attack at the age of 21 was the biggest thing for my dad, because yes, I was diagnosed at 18, but once I got the heart attack, I had surgery that Monday. My dad got on a red-eye flight, and he was in Virginia.
Wow.
Like, he was in, before I even got to the hospital, he was
He was
already
already here.
And then I had open heart surgery last August. In the midst of COVID, he still made his way up here.
Good.
Yeah, man.
So,
Oh.
he's the hardest part, and I've had this conversation with him. The hardest part is him not being here from the traumatic experiences that I go through. Granted, the sports and all that's different, but the traumatic experiences, and I've had two in the last year. I've had a car accident earlier this year, which landed me in the hospital for 2 weeks. T-Bone could have took my life. He couldn't come up here because he was in between getting his vaccination. And then, like I said, last August. And it showed me the past is the past. He learned and matured, and we had that conversation.
That's a message.
Yeah.
That's a message right there. Awesome. Man, what a great story.
Man, brother,
What a great story.
you could do a whole nother podcast on that kid right there.
Yeah.
I'm a witness.
Isaac, I'm a witness to every time we say we're going to do another podcast, I got to do it. please limit.
How many times we say that
Yes,
this time?
sir, thank you.
Yeah. We got 3 more.
Isaac, I want to come to you. You know I'm going to say you for that.
See?
I want to come to you, and I want you to take the end of the question, the last question. What was the hardest? I want you to go reverse for me. Can you do that for me? What was the hardest thing for Dad in that role?
And we know it's 2-part to it.
And then take me to what was instrumental for him in his success.
So I'm gonna speak on for the sake of the audience, so they'll know who I'm talking to.
Isaac, I want you to speak.
But give it in his
Okay,
defense.
okay.
In his
He was going with it
defense,
too.
he has
Yeah, I
It's
Correct.
a difference.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I don't want
But
him.
see, but
I
he
don't want
can't-
him to speak just because of the
No,
audience.
but he have to choose.
Yeah. I have to
Am
be
I
careful.
speaking of biological or am I speaking of dad?
Yeah. Well, unless he.
Mr. Page,
Yeah.
you know I know that, right?
So
You-
unless
you know.
unless the question is specifically about my biological father, I'll speak about my dad because
I got you.
because
Yeah,
he is my hero.
You okay?
And let me take you there.
Okay.
When I say what was the hardest thing for your father, you would only know that for your dad because you probably were there growing up with him.
I think the hardest part for my biological father was not being there. Because he was around. I knew him. I mean, I seen him every summer. I mean, I got good stories. We went to races, drags, Daytona, all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I think the hardest part for him was not being there. I think the hardest part for him was me resenting him not being there. You know what I'm saying?
Was that by choice?
I mean, you do what you learn. When you are raised to hear, and we hear it in the community, when you are raised to see a mother's hurt from something, you take that. You know what I'm saying?
It's part of you.
I mean, because it was just me and my mom for the first 10 years of my life. I mean, I had my grandmother, you know what I'm saying? But it was me and my mom. You know what I'm saying? For the first 10 years of my life, it was me and my mom. And so I seen her struggle. I seen her, cry. I remember this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So
right.
you take on that resentment. You know what I mean? And I spent, and the reason why they know, and so I spent my whole life resenting him because that's what I heard and saw. But a man came in my life, and God sent that man
Talk to me.
in
bro.
my life,
Talk to me.
in my mother's life, and he is everything a dad can be. And I think the hardest, you said what was the hardest thing about my dad's role? And what was the other question?
What was the hardest thing for him as a father?
The hardest thing for him as a father was communication. My dad was never like I am with my son and my daughters. You know what I'm saying? In your business, come here.
So why do you think that was though? Was it taught to him? Is that how his father?
He modeled
was, or-
what his dad did to him.
Yeah.
His dad was a deacon. In 1960s in country South Carolina. You know what I'm saying? So you do what you was taught. And I've heard my mom say this all the time. You parent the way your parents were parented. You know what I mean? And so it's up to us to break that cycle. And so that would probably be the hardest thing was, like I told y'all, he modeled what a father was supposed to be. But he's an introvert. So he don't talk. But when he do,
You listen.
you know what I'm saying? It's always a gym. He's a Christian man, deacon, before, and he loved the Lord. And so that was probably the hard, for me, I believe that was probably, because when you asked me that question, I think that was probably one of the hardest things, because he never really communicated when I was coming up. You know what I mean? And yeah, that was probably one of the hardest things. And the other question
What
was
was instrumental in helping him in his fatherhood role?
God and his love for the Lord.
The ultimate.
And regardless of where he was at in his life, I can still see my dad sitting in his chair reading his Bible. I mean, I can see him reading his Bible. You know what I mean? And so I think that was instrumental in him, and the will to not fail. You know what I'm saying? Because he was always there.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of Men Are Talking, Searching for My Father episode. Join us in part 2 of the journey where these courageous men travel deeper in search for their fathers.